face.
Matty Benedetto is the host and creator of Unnecessary Inventions, a YouTube channel where, kind of like you might expect from the name, he makes totally unnecessary inventions. Inventions that solve problems that don't exist but seem almost practical in a twisted way. Whether it's a reverse headphone, a smoke deflector. By the way, I actually want one of those. or maybe a social decision token. There's a fine line separating absurdity from genius. To make these inventions, he uses 3D printing, sewing, mold making, woodworking, laser cutter, and just about anything else he can get his hands on. Matty started his channel in 2019, and really it blew up this year in May of 2021. He's got over 135 million views, almost 500,000 subscribers. That's going to be 1 million here in probably a couple months. An Instagram with over 1 million followers, and now everybody's talking about him and watching his hilarious videos. Hey, Matty, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Before all of these unnecessary inventions, there were necessary inventions in your life, or at least like creative and practical and clever and very, very well designed inventions. So why don't we talk about your life before the unnecessary part of it?
Sure. Should I just start from the very beginning of where it all...
Let's go all the way back to your birth.
All the way back. So I'm 31 now. And I guess my first forte into designing products or creating products when I was 13, my mom taught me how to crochet hats, and so I was a big ski racer. I went skiing every weekend, so I would crochet hats. I would make them for my friends at the mountain in New York, and then so that whole winter I did that. The next winter I made a website so now people could submit hat designs that they wanted to have made. I would knit them after high school and everything and ship them to wherever they lived around the world. And then when I was 15, I was crocheting my hands off. So then I outsourced all the production to China and switched over from one-off individual hats to then I would design a collection of hats and stuff like that I would sell online, mainly to the freestyle X Games type skiers. So basically ran that company.
And this is when you were 15.
Yeah, so I remember my first production I had coming from China. I was still not... People always ask, how did you know how to do this? I think back, I don't really remember what I did. I know I went to madeinchina.com and found a manufacturer. But my mom, we drove our Yukon XL to the shipping dock at JFK. And it's us and 18-wheelers in line to go up, and we just packed the whole Suburban with the hats that I had coming in from China. So it's pretty crazy looking, because this was 2005, so still pretty early internet-ish. So I ran that company for quite a while and moved from outside New York City up to Vermont. And my college gave me an office on campus all 4 years to run this ski company. And then things took a little bit of a turn my sophomore year. I was at an event I was sponsoring, and I was just skiing the course. It's all jumps and everything like that. Didn't land where I was supposed to. Took a helicopter off the mountain. Ended up not walking for 2 years from just destroying my entire leg.
Wow.
Spent about 2.5 months in the hospital. So my love for skiing faded a little bit, and I wasn't as deep into it. So then I pivoted that company to a tech accessory brand, sort of using my background of producing clothes and hats. So I expanded the line of ski clothing. So all of the tech accessories had a element of textiles built into them. So I was actually kind of the first person to make those woven braided iPhone cables. Didn't get any of the patents I applied for, and so now you see them everywhere. But so I ran that company. I designed collections for J. Crew. I did them for Qatar Airlines. They were sold to Restoration Hardware, Zoomies, Urban Outfitters. Still all just as a one-man show.
This is still while you were in college.
This was right after I graduated.
Right after you graduated.
Is when was sort of when I pivoted that brand.
And what did you study in college?
I went to school for marketing.
Oh, marketing.
Yep. So all the product design stuff has just kind of been self-taught over the years of just figuring it out and tinkering, and the first batch is a little rough, and each new product that comes out gets a little bit better than the one before that. And
do you remember standing at the airport, putting all the boxes, and just be like, this is how it's done. This is literally how products get over. Now that has been because I remember the first time we kind of did it, it's like, oh, that's kind of how it's done. It goes to a shipping yard and it gets in the that's how we sell products.
We just barely fit it into the Suburban. I think I was maybe even sitting on the boxes in the front seat on the way home. And I wasn't totally convinced that I just sent them the files to China, and then 3 months later, I was going to have these products at my doorstep. So I was a lifeguard at the time. So I used all my money as a lifeguard to do this first production run. And then, so where are we up to? And then in 2015, I launched another brand called Sondre Travel, which was travel pillows, bags, wallets, all that kind of stuff. And that brand was sort of focused on Kickstarter. So I would do kind of big Kickstarter launches and then smaller product releases in between there. And sort of over that time, I've had ideas for April Fool's Day pranks, or just sort of maybe a separate one-off viral product idea I have. So I'd get a sample made in China, get it here in my hands, and be like, okay, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, and there's no way I'm ever going to sell it. So it's sort of Unnecessary Inventions has had a piece in my brain over the past 15 years while I've been designing products. And it wasn't until February of 2019 where, so for Chinese New Year, all of the manufacturers close for an entire month. So you can't really get anything done. I ended up buying that white 3D printer back there and just started tinkering with some ideas I had. And I always had this idea of AirPod chopsticks, sort of, going along when they first came out, everyone made fun of how ridiculous they looked in people's ears. So sort of leaning into that a little more. And just put that idea out on my personal Instagram. I put it on Reddit, and the next morning it was on the front page of Reddit, and it just has been a snowball effect since then.
So you didn't have any real experience with 3D printers and mold making and all of the rest moving into this. How does one kind of move from not understanding that discipline to understanding and knowing how to do those things?
I guess it's just through some of the products I designed in the past. I had for my ski apparel brand, in the summer I would come out with summer products. So I had designed sunglasses, and I had full, custom designed frames and all that kind of stuff. So I've lightly tinkered in 3D modeling and all that kind of stuff over the years. And I don't know, I'm always just one to get into a new technology and just dive into it and figure it out. And it's still been, a tinkering process over the past 2 years.
You're kind of the 3D printing master at this point. The things you come up with are pretty amazing. I know a lot of people with 3D printers, and they have a hard time kind of figuring out exactly what to do with it beyond paperweights. Although I guess it could be argued a lot of your stuff is probably paperweights ultimately.
They do end up on a shelf if they're still... that's the thing with Unnecessary Inventions, that it's part engineering, product design, and some of them are also part video editing, that if you move to the camera 1 foot over, you see the wires hanging out the back, that I have it all perfectly lined up and the illusion is there to sell whatever I'm saying this product can do.
Was there a bunch of stress built up after the first thing that you do kind of hits and goes? And now is there a bit of sophomore jinx? Are you worried more about oh goodness, is it going to lose steam, or is this just oh great, now I have people interested, so let's go and do this?
Yeah, so the second one came about, that first one, the AirPod chopsticks blew up. And then the second invention that I did was from the comments in Reddit. So someone was like, oh, I wish there was a way that I could carry my jacket around but not look like a loser by tying it around my waist. So I sort of volleyed that up. So I made this coat hook that it goes around your neck and hangs off the back of your neck to carry your coat that way. And I sort of volleyed it up in that hey, I'm that guy from a couple days ago. Here's the comments, So I sort of tried to connect it, being hey, I noticed that someone in the community mentioned this, so I made it for them.
You had also one about the keeping the two ends, the two strings on a hoodie equal length, because one of them always is a little longer. So
Yep.
you
And that's the thing is, like,
these two absurd little things that clip onto, it's like magnet holders that click right on the front of the jacket and then hold those equal.
Yep. Yeah, that's what's nice.
Brilliant.
Now, like, I would say about like 65% of the invention ideas come from things I think up, through my daily life and all that. And then the other, 35% is now stuff submitted from people. I think that invention, I think it was just someone replying to my Instagram stories being like, oh my God, fix your hoodie strings. I cannot stand when they're uneven. So I'm like, okay, well, there's an invention idea now. So it's like I just pick up on little cues here and there that at this point, it's like all my brain is wired to do.
The travel accessories company was the first time that you started getting into Kickstarter and Kickstarter campaigns. And I saw a video of yours where you were very nervously pressing the button for, I guess, that was the first time that you were launching a Kickstarter campaign. What was the first one like, and how heavily now do you rely upon Kickstarter for, well, you've actually had an unnecessary invention via Kickstarter.
Yep. So the first one was I just sort of had the itch to do something new, and I was like, okay, what could I do? I'm like, people charge their phones. Like, I got phones and everything all figured out. I'm like, what do people like to do? And traveling was one of the first things. So I just typed in Amazon travel accessories, and the first 5 top items were travel pillows. And I'm like, yeah, travel pillows are big and bulky and they kind of suck. So if I was to design a travel pillow, what would I do? And within like 6 months, I had designed this travel pillow that has a spandex band. So it also works as an eye mask behind your head. You could, have it around your neck and sort of go in any which way. And I'd been interested in Kickstarter for a long time. And I had been looking for an avenue to try out the platform. And I thought this would be perfect. So I actually shot the product video on a private jet. I just emailed the local airport here. I'm like, do you guys have a plane I could borrow? And they're like, oh, we have this $10 million private jet that you can borrow because it's currently has maintenance being done on it. So they just let me use it for free for a day.
They didn't even charge rent. Wow. Just like, nope. Here.
The power of just asking.
And this is what these Instagrammers do, right? They go out and pose in front of these.
They didn't let me fly around, but
oh, rats.
So yeah, hit go on that one. So let's see. I think that was 2015. Who knows? So many things at this point. But yeah, that campaign went on to raise about $125,000 in the first month, which definitely blew me away. I think I was a little surprised at the number of people that just browse Kickstarter. It was like 35+% were people that are just browsing the website, and clicking to back the project. That's kind of what's interesting in Kickstarter is that it has its own built-in community rather than trying to get someone to sondretravel.com. They've never heard of this company. They don't trust it. It sort of adds that layer of trust to, at least some people trust Kickstarters and some people don't at this point. But it sort of, adds a layer of trust to rather than just some random website that you're going to back a project. So that did great. And then so I launched 4 Kickstarters total for Sondre Travel. I did the pillow, the beach chair, a travel bag, and then a smaller eye mask that was sort of a remix of the pillow. Then I did launch 1 Kickstarter for the tech accessory brand. And then I actually had another Kickstarter fully ready to go, a whole travel collection that was a bag, an organizer, packing cubes, all that kind of stuff, right when Unnecessary blew up. And it was like, I had 2 super viral inventions. And then I was like, I think I'm done with this. I was like, I think Unnecessary, I think I'm just going to focus on this. So I still use the bag every day that I was going to use for that Kickstarter project, but just totally abandoned it and just sort of dove right into Unnecessary.
Is there ever a point where you think an unnecessary invention might actually end up becoming a real product? I mean, I, for one, and I mentioned it in the intro, the smoke deflector to me is a brilliant idea because it's what it is it's this like device you put on your smoke detector in your kitchen, and so when you burn something, you're cooking, and it doesn't, because I hate it when it goes off and you do that. You stand up there, you try to fan it away and everything. I thought, brilliant. That's what
that was a good one. So I've at this point it's been just over 2 years. and I think I'm at like 270 inventions I've made, and I have sold about 15 of them. So I did do like a little. Usually it's focused around Christmas, just because that's kind of like the nature of the product. And so, as you mentioned earlier, I did end up launching one of them on Kickstarter as well. It's kind of nice having sort of the Instagram feed of posting the inventions. It's sort of like free product research. I could just go through and be like, okay, this one, and this one got the most amount of likes. It probably means that they will sell over all the other ones.
Nice.
And so the Jigsaw Puzzle Coffee Table, I knew that one could stand alone outside of Unnecessary Inventions, that if someone hadn't heard of me and all the other products I'd created, when they see it, they're like, oh, that's a fun idea. And it's something I thought that could live in a lot of people's homes without having to like be following me as a creator. And so that one also went on to do just over $100,000 as well in the Kickstarter campaign.
You mentioned that you do 2 to 4 inventions per week.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And at this point, over 200 inventions. What's the breakdown of how those ideas come about? Clearly, it's not all just a backlog of great ideas that you've had, and you're now releasing them. Where do some of the ideas come from?
Yep. So I do have like a list in my phone of just ideas, whether it's things just like happen in your daily life that like it might not trigger an invention idea. Like it's just someone on my Instagram saying your hoodie strings are uneven. And it's like, okay, well, there's an invention idea. And so a lot of it is just, at this point, it's like, as I said, just the way my brain is wired, but it's just seeing things that people do in public, seeing a meme online, sometimes they're just completely random aha moments. And so now, every Sunday as well on my Instagram stories, I have a thing called Sunday Inspiration Session where people can submit their ideas. And I probably get like a few thousand every Sunday. And like 1 or 2, 3 are okay ideas. Because it's kind of a nuance of like what is an unnecessary invention. There's sometimes some layers to it that like people might not necessarily have the mindset to be thinking, down that way.
What makes for a good unnecessary invention?
A good unnecessary invention is, so my mom calls them uptown problems. So they like live in New York City. So it's like a problem that, if you had $1 million, like, oh man, I can't decide which Instagram post I should like or not. So, it's like, I call them problems that don't exist. They technically do exist. You just never needed a product to solve that problem. Something like I made an invention called the Not Hot blanket, which is a blanket with a Velcro a Velcro patch that pulls out, and so you can stick your hot leg out of the covers.
Of course you
brilliant.
would, right?
But the logical solution is you don't buy a new blanket, you just sort of roll your leg outside the blanket. So it's sort of adding 10 more steps to the problem by trying to solve it when, you could have just done one step to solve it.
Does an idea ever come in the form of the marketing campaign first, and then you find an invention because you like something about a certain... And how important are the marketing campaigns to actually make the idea kind of full circle and complete?
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the things that sets Unnecessary Inventions apart from other creators or makers and 3D printing enthusiasts, is that it's the whole package of the video, the product name, the description of the invention, and I think having my background in marketing, going to school for marketing, sort of definitely ties in there. There has been a few inventions where like just randomly a name pops in my head. I'm like, okay, well, there's a name for an invention, let me work backwards from there. One of them was the Zucker rug. And I just, for some reason,
that was
Mark Zuckerberg.
How am I going to pair Mark Zuckerberg and a rug?
Right. And so I made a bath mat that was just Mark Zuckerberg's face, because Facebook is watching everything you do. Mark might as well watch what you do in the bathroom.
And has logically been followed up by the Musk mat?
The Musk mat, yep. And so that was turning Elon Musk into a rug as well from his viral podcast interview with Joe Rogan.
You had another product too, where you won't get the rug dirty because there's holes cut out for your feet to step in.
The watch your step rug.
Yeah.
And so that was, so I have, you can see behind me, I have a rug tufting frame. So I make all the rugs by hand. And one day I just posted the rug frame with the backing material on it. And I just posted it. That was one of the Sunday inspiration sessions. And I just said, all right, everyone, screenshot this and send me what I should make for a rug. And that was one of the ideas that someone drew onto the frame for me to make. So that's probably one of the inventions I do actually use in my daily life because it's the entrance of my design studio. Whether I actually put my feet in the positions, I don't know.
Is there an invention which sounded like it should be really easy to make, and then when you started making it, you're like, holy crow, I really backed myself into a corner?
I would say that comes down to more like the engineering side of things. So like really early on, this is maybe like within the first 20 inventions, I made like a miniature treadmill to work out your fingers if you're swiping all the time. So it's like a little treadmill and the track spins. And just trying to wrap my brain around how to 3D print a track that would move for the video. And so it comes down to like not having the engineering degree, like trying to, and this is where like the video editing comes into play, is like moving parts and like my brain sometimes like trying to figure out, okay, if this lever goes down, what's the mechanism? Which direction is that going to make something go? So it's those little things that definitely that trip me up sometimes.
I enjoyed the I don't remember what it was called. Those little curtain to cover your mouth while you're eating. If you're chewing with your mouth open, so it's this little sliding curtain, and it opens up so you can talk on your phone if you need to. And to me, that's like, it's so perfect because obviously the solution is just don't open your mouth while you're eating. But no, this is a little curtain. But the funnest part of that was the way it attached to your head,
right
into
sliding
your
right
nose.
up into your nose.
Logically.
Yeah, so that was the Cuisine Curtain. And so that was like one of the ones that went super viral when I was getting ready to launch that next Kickstarter for Sondre Travel. So it was like that one blew up and got a bunch of articles. So then that was like one of the ones that made me jump into this full time.
Was you being the face of not only your unnecessary products, but your earlier products with your other businesses, was you being the face and the model and the actor and everything else, convenience, or was that specifically so you can kind of control every single aspect of an invention?
I would say for the other brands, doing my Kickstarter videos and all that kind of stuff, I would say definitely convenience, more on that side of things. I just like had my college roommate film the video. He does video work now, but I just had him, and it's just easy enough for me and him to go out to a private plane and go film a video. And so basically through all of these businesses I've ever done, I've never had any employees. I've never hired anyone else. I've done everything from start to finish. So I think it's just how I'm wired a little bit, that just like, and it probably goes to the control thing, that like I just want to control the process all the way through. And then, turning more into Unnecessary, being much more of a creator-focused business. It's like I don't need to trademark my videos or my photos because my face kind of, at this point, is my trademark.
Right.
The watermark on the video.
I mean, we've talked about the marketing and engineering of the products, but the entertainment is really the component that pulls it all together. And the way you've been putting together, especially lately this year, the YouTube Shorts are a perfect format for your. They're like little campaigns. I invented. They kind of, a lot of them start out that way. They remind me of some of these Instagram ads that you see that come through your feed, And so it really is. I think the entertainment value of it is really what's grown it the most.
Yep. Yeah. I like the comments when someone's like, "Oh, I was swiping the feed and I just swiped past it because I thought it was an ad at first." That's
right.
Definitely. And yeah, it's just sort of I just like thinking of that whole package of from start to finish.
Have you always been kind of a character? Like back in school, were you the class clown or anything?
I would say I've had personality my whole life,
Yeah.
but
Put it.
it's fun to just sort of and earlier on there used to be much larger story to Unnecessary, because it's like I have that signature like deer in the headlights, but I also think I'm a hot model look on all my
Right.
Instagram photos.
Well, you got that mustache going now. I like that.
And so, like, when I transitioned over to YouTube, doing my explanation videos and showing how I built it, like, you sort of need a bubbly-er personality for YouTube. So that it was sort of like there were different clones of myself running all the different channels. Like, that's why in the comments I'm always so rude on Instagram, and, like, I have that stoic look, because that's Matt004 who got screwed up in the cloning process. But Matt002 is the one that runs the YouTube channel, and that's why he's so bubbly and personable, and so it's, kind of creating that whole world for the fans to follow.
Have you thought about how you would like to scale this if things continue to go? Yeah, do you find yourself in a position where you do want to bring people on and figure out how to expand, or are you happy with it expanding just as big as it to fit the need for you?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm maybe at a little bit right now, that like the channels are all at a pretty decent numbers and all that kind of stuff now. I've always been one that I just sort of figure out and make it work in the moment. I'm not I don't even know what my next invention is, so it's like, I don't even know that far.
You're not a dream board maker? You don't?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm always just one to sort of take the flow of it. I'm lucky that, the bulk of my income comes through brand collaborations, that a lot of them might not even ever end up on my feeds. That I'm creating in a new unnecessary invention for another brand, that I'm also creating almost a whole marketing campaign for them. So I'm able to charge, I think, more than what other people maybe that have similar numbers to me, because I'm not just taking a photo with their product, I'm creating sort of a whole suite of marketing materials that they could use that also then get featured to my audience.
Do you have brands who want you to make a custom unnecessary invention for them?
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, like right now, I just did one last week for Energizer. I'm doing one, working on now for Bud Light. I've done stuff for KFC, Call of Duty.
And what are some of those what do those look like?
So Energizer, I made a battery-powered hand swiping device for when your cat tries to climb up on your desk and walk across your computer. So it was like a swinging arm that, like, so when the cat came by, the arm started swinging to scoot the cat off of the table.
I don't need one of those.
Yep. This past February, I did a collaboration with a yogurt brand, and we made 7 inventions for them that released one per day on their channels. So we did like a double-ended spoon so that you could enjoy, because it was right around Valentine's Day, so you could enjoy that. We did a social distancing spoon. We did sort of a pocket tee that folds down with a plate so that you can get chores down around the house and still have both your hands free. And that's the thing, it's like, you might not see some of these collaborations that I work on.
So they just live on in their accounts or wherever they.
And then some of them, like a couple of the ones I'm working on now, will end up on my channels as well.
Right. That's got to be good to be able to be getting that kind of income, especially since you've been leaning heavily into the shorts, which don't pay anything as far as YouTube AdSense
goes. Yeah. It is quite the pennies on the YouTube short side of things.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Unnecessary Studio, where your workspace was before, and I believe what is a bit of a newer workspace for you.
Yep. Yeah. So I had the same office running those other e-commerce brands. I moved into there in 2013. It was sort of a shipping container, concrete, hallway almost. And it worked well. The back half was a warehouse when I was selling, all the individual products and all that kind of stuff. And I had the, workspace, living room type situation up front. But it only had 2 windows on the front of the thing, and then it was just all concrete to the back. So as things transitioned more into video and photo work, just not having that natural light was really difficult. So I'd been looking for a new space since like last September or so. Almost pulled the trigger on a couple until I found the space that I'm in now. So this place is now 2,300 square feet. Pretty big. Got windows.
100 windows.
Yeah, every corner has windows. So like now I'm like, I don't know how to like expose with this much light. Like it's almost like I'm having the opposite problem of like, wait, there's too much light in here.
Everything in Vermont is above a Ben and Jerry's, right?
Exactly. Yep. So I have the wafting smell of waffle cones.
That's awesome.
I always know when they have a new batch coming out. And I've seen Jerry of Ben and Jerry's outside a couple times.
Really?
Yep. He still lives in town. They both live in town. They just did a thing for the Food Network, so they were filming outside for the Food Network, and so they're out and about and around.
Did you show them any of your ice cream cone inventions? Yeah, I know there's like a couple of those ice cream.
There are a couple. I do have friends on the Ben and Jerry's marketing team. I think that maybe just not quite what they do. I've always been like, come on. I was like, let's do something. So anytime I come up with a ice cream invention, I always use Ben and Jerry's, both for the hometown connection, but also to be like, well, see, I used it. Let's keep it going. Nudge, nudge. So I have like whole production studio. I've got about a dozen 3D printers behind me. I've got sewing stuff here. I've got the laser cutter. I've got power tools over there. And then over here, I've got a photo studio wall and then like a faux living room where I can, film all of the inventions. Because before I was sort of going back and forth, lugging all my camera stuff to my house. So I wanted a space where it's like, I can sit here all day and I don't need to go anywhere if I don't need to.
A dozen 3D printers. Oh my God. Wow.
Well, and that's the thing is like at this point, like I've only bought those two right there and all the other ones just end up being sent here. And they get used in my videos and all that kind of stuff. So it is a perk of building an audience is the free stuff.
While we're talking about this, why don't you explain what rapid prototyping is and how this is something like even just like 15 years ago really just would have not been a consideration for people to be able to think of an idea and then in their own house quote unquote tinker with it.
Yep.
So could you explain kind of how that process works for you and how you go from getting an idea to actually getting a prototype?
Sure. Yeah. So basically using all the 3D printers behind me, I can go from an idea in my head. And usually when I'm thinking of an invention, I can see the final product, like what it looks like. So then from there, it's just sort of taking that image in my head. And I use Fusion 360, which is a CAD software. So basically, again, that I'm all self-taught just from watching YouTube videos, slowly building the product in a 3D space on how it would work, but also having, the limitations of 3D printing in mind of how I'm building it, knowing how I'm going to have to 3D print each of the parts. And so that's the nice thing about 3D printing is that, I could take a file, send it off to the 3D printer. And so basically the plastic kind of looks like a weed whacker, string that would go on a weed whacker. It's just a thin line of plastic goes into the machine. It melts it, and then the nozzle goes layer by layer, building the product into an actual final 3D product that you can take off and use. And that I can set that up. I can do all the tinkering on my computer all day, set it up, because it's not the fastest. It's not unlikely for a product to take 8 to 12 hours to 3D print. So I just set it up, go home, come back to the studio the next day, and there it is, sitting on the printer. And if I was lucky enough that the first round draft actually worked, I could just take the printer off and film the video right there. But if not, I can just, figure out exactly what, again, the mechanisms of making things work. So did the hinges work the way I wanted to? And then just, quickly tweak those 3D files. And, yesterday I didn't even have this thing in my hand. And now the next day I already have it in my hand, see what's working, see what doesn't work. And then overnight again, just hopefully print the final file. And then, I can film the video. That's why I can go from idea to finished post on my Instagram, usually within 2 to 3 days.
I mean, it's just absolutely incredible what 3D printing has done. It's revolutionized so much that, I mean, you say, oh, it could take 8 to 12 hours, and it's like,
Right.
we're like 20 years ago to prototype something like that.
8 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. And I have, and that was sort of when I talked about previously, like having these random stupid ideas, like when I was running the other e-commerce businesses, I would, think of the idea and get it sampled out in China, which, would take 4 to 6 weeks to get the thing and be like, oh, they didn't really understand. I meant this, not this. So it is much different being able to just, and I'll print an idea and I'll see it. And I still have times where I look at it and I'm like, okay, this is dumb. This isn't going on my Instagram. So it's definitely still in that realm.
Are there parts of 3D printing that's just frustrating? I know that people I know who have used 3D printers find that there's a lot of waste involved, but maybe they're just new to it and don't have the expertise that you do.
And so there's always one printer that doesn't work. So that's what's nice about having like this full collection. It's like
in an army.
It's like if you have one printer, you just got to sit and figure out what's wrong, why it's not printing the way you want it to. At that point, I'm like, okay, throw that thing to the side. I'm moving over to this printer, and I'll get back to that one when I feel like getting back to that one. So that's a little bit of a luxury I have of having the army of printers I have here that I can just sort of like, because it can just get maddening. You're like, this worked perfectly yesterday. I haven't touched it. And now it's just spewing garbage. It's like you just don't know from one day to the next.
Your Jigsaw table was literally prototyped that way and was a product which was successful on Kickstarter. And then you shipped a bunch. It looks like you got a whole new container of them or something along those lines. Tell us about the Jigsaw coffee table, actually.
Yeah, so that idea I had for a little while. And so I have a Glowforge laser cutter here. And so that idea, again, just sort of tinkered away on my computer. The Glowforge works a lot faster than 3D printing, so I just had a giant piece of plywood that I was able to use to laser cut the wood out. And I made that prototype and put it out, and it just did really well.
And describe what that is for people who are listening to this.
Yep, so I like to call it the like IKEA directions on steroids. So it's a jigsaw puzzle where the entire surface of the top of the puzzle, of the coffee table, is a jigsaw puzzle. So when you get your coffee table, you can't actually use it until you first screw on the legs, but then you have to assemble the entire top of the coffee table as all the pieces are wooden and they all fit together, but there's no design. So it's like you're just kind of following the wood grain. So it's definitely a difficult puzzle to put together.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And so again, taking that, the files were, simple because it's laser cut. They're just Illustrator files that you would just send to the laser cutter and it just does the vector cutout. I got 3 different samples made overseas in different factories to test, different qualities and all that kind of stuff, and ended up choosing one of them to go with the final production. So I ran the Kickstarter, did production, like shipping from overseas right now is an absolute mess. They sat waiting to leave China around Christmas, and they ended up leaving like early April or so. Mm-hmm. So it's just like a big backlog. But yeah, I had that was the first time I had an entire container, because it's also the biggest product I've ever made. So I bribed 4 friends with pizza and all that kind of stuff, and we spent the entire day unloading this giant shipping container so I still have my old office. So I kept the old office as like my warehouse now and storage and that kind of stuff. I get it for a really good deal. So it's like, it just sort of made sense to keep it for now. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a headache dealing with that project just because it's such a bigger product. Because before that, I could usually ship things like the iPhone cables. I can ship 10,000 of them by air, and they get here in a day, versus going by sea. It takes 40 days to go down around the Panama Canal, up the East Coast, So it would be fun to license that product out to like IKEA and like have millions made and shipped by them. But I don't know if anything like that will ever happen.
It's a really good example, though, of having the flexibility of being able to prototype kind of on demand, because you were concerned about the thickness or the space in between each of the puzzle pieces. You wanted it easy enough to be able to, kind of put together, but also firm enough to act as a tabletop. So you have to go through and, 8 millimeters, 9 millimeters, 5 millimeters, and test out all these things. And that before would have been like, you'd have to go to a company to print it, and they would have to mail it to you, and you'd figure,
So I was able to just I could print 4 of the puzzle pieces and see exactly how they fit together, figure out, because if you think of a puzzle, they have all the weird notches and curves. Like I wasn't sure how that would translate to a thick piece of wood versus, a thin piece of cardboard for a regular puzzle. So, I was able to figure all that out within a 12-hour workday and have the final, tolerances that I needed to actually build the first prototype myself.
Are there any tools you need for your shop that you don't have yet that you'd like have your eye on?
I would like a CNC machine, because like the laser cutter can only do so much, like thickness wise. So it'd be nice to have a CNC machine that could maybe do a little bit more.
I always thought a laser cutter would be a nice thing to have in my shop, because not that I would use them in my videos, but man, that's just like printing money on those things. I always like to relate this story I saw on I live near San Francisco, on the Golden Gate Bridge. They'll have vendors sitting out there, and there were these people who were selling these little bitty, like business card sized laser cut and then etched drawings of the Golden Gate Bridge, $20 a piece. I'm like, it costs you nothing to make these things. It's just pure profit.
Yep. And so like on the business side of things for Unnecessary, so I have like an affiliate deal with Glowforge. So I, use it to build products. And so the machine I have, it's rather expensive. It's about like $6,000. But every time someone purchases one using my code, I get a $500 kickback.
Nice.
And I've sold in the hundreds of them with people using my code. So it's a nice incentive for me to continue using it in my videos, and sort of a somewhat passive income to help fund stuff.
Let's switch gears for a second, and I'm going to ask you, what does someone do when they receive a cease and desist letter from a huge company because of a fake invention?
You take a photo and make the cease and desist more famous than the actual product itself.
Well done. Well done, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. So that story was Crocs. That was still early on, within the first like 6 months. I had the idea for Croc Gloves forever. And that was the first product that I hired a 3D artist to design, because I was like, the geometry of a hand and a fingers and, getting it all. If I did it, it would just look like a square with like holes in it. And so, so I came out with the Croc Gloves, and my friend worked at a shoe store where they sold Crocs, so he gave me all the rivets, so I had all the logos, and I went on vacation. I launched it while I was on vacation. I took the product photos. I took them with me, took the product photos on vacation, launched it, and then I got home, and the cease and desist was like in the envelope waiting at my doorstep already.
Was it because you used the actual logo?
I used the logo. They were called Croc Gloves because they went viral. There was confusion whether they were a real product.
Is it fair to say, though, that if it were to go past this, it's clearly parody? Like, it's clearly parody?
That was my rebuttal to, and it was from the law firm that represents Crocs.
Right.
I sort of learned a lot about parody and fair use and all that kind of stuff within trademarks and copyrights and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I took a photo wearing the gloves, holding the cease and desist. It's like the 15th most upvoted thing on Reddit, I think, or something like that.
How did the cease and desist all play out?
They basically said, so technically they're called the Gator Grips now. So then I had a renaming contest and did all sorts of, just kept the buzz going. So they said as long as I changed the name of them and photoshopped out the logo, they were good. So then it created the whole Gator collection. So I've come out with the Gator visor. I did Gator briefs.
Underwear.
Right.
You've got the Crocs underwear. Oh my God.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is lemonade, or is lemons to lemonade. Well done. Well done.
And I've talked with their marketing team, and then they ghosted me. There was very brief conversations about actually making them last fall. and then they ghosted me. So I'm still crossing my fingers that maybe one day, it'd be perfect for the whole story of it, the whole full circle, and so maybe one day.
So that legal team got involved with the marketing team and told them, better ghost this guy.
Right.
Keep it quiet.
Yep.
What's your advice for people who have a great idea, but are literally just always those people that just have a great idea?
Everybody does, right?
Yeah. So I always say, and I know I had a little bit of background making products in the past, but no matter what it is, what kind of idea, whatever, just put something out there. Just start doing anything to head towards whatever that goal you think it is. And, starting Unnecessary Inventions, I had no audience, no plan to make this a business, but I just had dumb ideas in my head and started putting them out on the internet. I had no idea if they were going to land, if people were going to think they're funny. Just putting something out there and seeing the reaction is like 9/10 of the battle of it all. And I think a lot of people are too afraid to put something out, are too, I don't know. It's just, you just need to start doing something. Anything is always my advice.
Follow-up question. Why does everybody think that if they're to share their invention idea that someone's just going to take it and run off and make their whatever it is that they're so invested in? Like it's just going to change. The person's going to see the value and then they'll be like, I'm quitting my job and I'm going after your dream.
I get people hitting me up all the time. Like, I have this idea. I'll give you 50% if you help me bring it to life. And I'm like, I'll take 90 because the idea is only worth so much if there's no execution behind it.
It sounds like Shark Tank.
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah, that's the thing, is that like no one cares about your idea. I don't think enough to take it. Like, people don't have time to, they're going to drop everything they do because they think no one's as invested in an idea as you are, if it's your own idea.
Yeah, you see that with authors too. Same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
You say on your LinkedIn that you're an evil genius. Should we all be concerned?
Again, that sort of goes into the different personalities of Unnecessary Inventions. That I met 001, the head original, before all the clones. So that's where that falls into place.
I'm glad we got that one on our podcast.
You never know with Matt 004. He's kind of an asshole.
What's next? What's happening next for Unnecessary Inventions or yourself?
Yeah, so like one big pipe dream I've had like forever. So I came out with a book, self-published a book that was my first 101 inventions. But like the next big thing that I'm slowly working on sponsors, is I would love to create a in real life experience of Unnecessary Inventions, where it's a whole experience of seeing the inventions in person, seeing the videos, taking your own advertising, like having the inventions that where people can do the Unnecessary Inventions look, a place that shows 3D printers and shows how these products come to life, sort of the whole 360 degrees of what makes Unnecessary Inventions what it is. It has like, for like the past like year I've been wanting to do, and then COVID hit and all that kind of stuff. I had slight stuff thinking for last Christmas, but that obviously never happened. So there's a chance maybe for this Christmas something happens somewhere.
It's a perfect idea for like one of these pop-up, Instagram selfie museum.
Right,
kind of
exactly.
Things.
Yeah. I have a list in my phone of just like, I see stuff like that and I'll like jot down like, okay, I want to have this at the museum. I want to have this at the museum.
What's going to be the most Instagrammed is going to be the corn cob butterer.
Yep. And that one I had from last summer, and then I ran out of summer, and yeah, so that one was a big hit.
Oh,
add sex into anything, and the joke really lands.
Yeah, if you're listening to this right now, go and watch the corn cob butterer.
The Cob Quickie.
That's it.
I knew that this episode was us going to be talking about all your different inventions, and I really didn't want to do this, but because everybody does this and everybody tells you what they think is actually a good, like what one is actually necessary because they know better than you. I found 3 through all of my research. The first one, and I'm sure I gotta believe that you hear this a lot, the cereal keeper. No one likes soggy cereal. It's the most logical thing. You have the milk underneath, and then you just drop the cereal in. It's wonderful. The shoe
that one does sort of exist. There is a cup that it's
it keeps slightly separate.
Yeah, and then you like drink it, and the cereal falls out, and the milk comes out separately, or something like that. I had people send me that when that one came out.
It has to be together before it's on the spoon. And that's what made yours work really well. The second one was the shoe disguiser for the bathroom. I'm that guy. God, I can't do it because I am that guy that walks back to the restaurant. It's like, I know that was the guy because I recognize his shoes. And now he recognizes my shoes because I was in it. And then lastly, the hands-free shopping hoodie. I don't like... From a comfort standpoint, I don't like carrying bags. I hate pushing a cart around. So just literally having it all on me and just grabbing things and stuffing it, I absolutely love it. And honorable mention, the flippy mittens, because I'm Canadian and I wear mittens so that it precludes me from giving people the finger and having to
Okay, I'll give you a couple of my favorite. If we're doing this. I wasn't going to do this either, but you pressed me, Chad. I really like the reverse headphones because that's sure to annoy anybody. So you put headphones on and you're in complete silence. Oh, this sounds great. But the speakers face outward, so everybody hears the music.
Everybody else hears it all, and you live in complete peace and silence.
You would just be that guy.
Noise canceled silence at that.
Right. And also, I like the standing desk things. I'm always standing. I never sit at a desk. And you have a standing mouse and a standing keyboard.
Yep. Those ones were good, big hits. Because why move the desk? Why not just have all your accessories move?
Exactly. It's funny. Hilarious stuff. I just love your videos.
Thank you.
If you too are uncomfortable having an evil genius like Matty Benedetto just milling about, you can keep an eye on him on his YouTube channel or his TikTok or his Instagram or his subreddit or maybe Twitter or Facebook, or perhaps he's just going to invent a new social media platform and just take over the world.
And the pop-up exhibit.
And the pop-up.
This year. I'm going.
Before all that happens, if you would like to support the Chad and Steve podcast, you can do so by, just listening to another episode or sharing with a friend or just telling someone about the podcast. It really makes quite a difference. With that said, thank you, Matty, for being a great guest. Thank you, Steve, for being a great co-host. And thank you for listening to this episode.